I was coming back on a long plane ride from Los Angeles back to Chicago after a conference. And it was an important conference in my life. I experienced a very powerful healing in my relationship with my dad. My dad is a really good dad. We just celebrated Father's Day, and I called him the greatest dad in the world. And you'd have to say he'd done some things pretty well. He has three sons, and we've all grown up and are having meaningful lives, and our families and our kids, and doing meaningful work. So on Father's Day, he said, "Oh yeah, well I must have done something right," and I had to agree with him. But no dad is perfect, and I know for him, he grew up in a fairly emotionally abusive home. And he grew a lot. He was more loving than what he experienced growing up. He actually didn't hear that his mother loved him for much of his life. The first time he heard the words "I love you" was from my mother, his wife. And so he did well, but I often felt like that had a mark on him, and he passed that on to me. There was a sense of not feeling cared for, a sense of being put down. The language of love was sarcasm, and that was hard for me. I didn't do well with that. And I sat next to a Jewish woman. She shared her background on this plane ride back from LA after the kind of healing in my relationship with my dad. And she expressed some pain from her family and from her dad. And that was my cue. I was able to say, wow, I just was at a conference. And I'd love to share some of what happened to me in my pain. Often when we think about sharing our story or our testimony, we have a script for that. What were we like before Christ? How did we meet Christ? And what happened after we committed our lives to Christ? And that's a good story to know, but we have lots of stories. And part of what I want to help us do is to tell our God-citing stories regularly, often, as ways to start conversation and take relationships deeper. That's the fifth S. Share our story and share Jesus's story. And I like to teach people a certain process for sharing lots of God-citing stories. And it's very simple. It includes these questions. What was your point of pain? For me, that was my dad, and it was a sense of emotional put down and lack of being valued, and that was my point of pain. What was it doing to me? That's a critical question in telling your story. What was it doing to me? It made me try to earn love, prove myself, work harder than I should, always competed to be the best, and it was never enough. And by trying to earn love, I actually pushed it away. So what it was doing to me wasn't good. How did God show up? Well, at this conference, somebody prayed for me and actually saw Jesus come and look me in the eye and then reassure me of the Father's love for me, my Father in heaven. And just a wave of love washed over me. I didn't have to prove anything. I didn't have to earn anything. I didn't have to work anything out. I was loved by my Father in heaven. And then the person who was praying for me asked me to forgive my father, to let him go for what he owed me but hadn't given. And so I let him go. I gave him into the hands of God. And I tell you, as I experienced that healing, I began to know I was loved, stopped working quite as hard. I still had my problems, but stopped working quite as hard, felt more loved, and started to relate to my dad in a different way. We have a good relationship now. And as a matter of fact, he's had a renewal of his faith in his life at this season of his life. And I think our better relationship over the years contributed to that. So I told this Jewish woman that story with that template. What's your point of pain? What's it doing to you? How did God show up? What difference did it make? And then invite a response. That's the fifth. And I just asked her, can you relate? And I made sure to clean up my language. I didn't use Christianese. I didn't over-spiritualize it. I didn't talk about demons and Satan and a lot of stuff she wouldn't have gotten at that point. I just told it raw in everyday language. I've since learned to use that simple template to tell tens of stories in my life where God showed up. And I've been able to use that as a way to talk a lot, to share with people when the time is right, all about the God sightings in my life. You could do that too. You don't just have one story. Like me, you have more than one story. I have stories for every stage of my life. High school, college, my 20s, when I almost lost my marriage, my 30s, when I lost a job. I have points of pain stories for every stage. And I tell them to people whenever I can connect with a point of pain in their life. You could do that too. Take some moments to use that template to start thinking about a God sighting in your life and with whom you could share it. Lord, I thank you for the gift of the struggles in our lives as ways in which you can work through us to really bring good to other people, to bring other people closer to you. Help us learn to tell lots of stories about you to lots of people. For I pray in your name. Amen.
His presence go before, behind, beside, all around you, within you. He is here in the morning, in the evening, in your coming, in your going. Your rejoicing, He is for. May the faith